Hi, I'm Dr. Marcus.
And I'm Charlie, and this is the Mood Booster podcast.
In this podcast, we share practical tools, tips, and evidence based advice to help boost your mood, improve your well being, and find joy in everyday life.
We talk about life's highs, lows, and everything in between, with real stories and reflections from our own journeys.
Rooted in pillars of introspection, connection, and presence, this is the home of well being and joy.
This episode was on when things don't go to plan, so when life throws you a bit of a curveball. It was a great episode, wasn't it?
It was indeed. We really unpack the stresses of when things don't go to plan and how someone a bit like myself can be very rigid and get upset about it, or how you can be maybe a bit more flexible, maybe a bit more like you are, and really sharing the psychological theories and evidence behind that, and some tips about how we can look after ourselves better when things don't go to plan.
Hopefully you love this episode. Let us know what you think and enjoy. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Hello, everyone.
Buongiorno.
Welcome back to the 16th episode of the Mood Booster podcast.
Sorry.
No, it's fine.
16. So I just got too excited.
He's so excited about his Italian, Spanish.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Instantly wrong.
French.
Happy 4 months, everyone.
4 months.
4 months of this.
That is insane.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you for being
beautiful.
here. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
What a beautiful journey.
4 months we are here.
Thank you for being here.
We're glad that you're here.
Thank you for being
wonderful. Thank you for being here as well. It's a very, very hot day here in London town. We are roasting in this room right now.
Es muy caliente.
It's too hot, actually.
Very, very. So if you see me sweating, of my hair dripping and my beads of sweat on YouTube, mind your business.
Mind your business.
Mind your business.
Guys, roasting,
we don't need to
isn't
hear
it?
about it. We can already see it.
Oh.
One thing about me is I sweat so blooming much.
Yeah.
I'll go on a run. 1 kilometer in, I'm just dripping, and a normal person like you will just be there, normally dry, and I'm just. Whoa.
Yeah,
Anyway.
he sweats a lot. Yeah.
Anyway, we've got some news, haven't we?
We do. We want to. So before we go on to the news, we should probably say this episode is on when things don't go to plan. So when life throws you a curveball, how do you handle that? Are you good at handling that in terms of change? Do you like change? Do you like jazz? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We want to talk about how we can, how we can struggle with that, but then how we can maybe reframe those struggles to see unexpected changes or just change in general in everyday life sort of to be a challenge and something to grow from. And we've got obviously advice here to work towards.
Exactly. Yes. But I think as you were getting onto the point, before we go into the actual episode topic itself or how our weeks were, we do want to really sort of do a stock take, because I know you and I were speaking about it. We're basically launching something series better.
Yep.
Just playing.
Series better.
Series better. We basically wanted to come back on here and just tell you exactly what we're doing. Just reiterate what our mission is, what the Mood Booster podcast is, really, really quickly, so you know exactly what to expect from what we're here for as well.
Yeah, I think that's important. We are constantly trying to evaluate what we're doing and make sure that we're doing it the best way we can. And I've had feedback from many of you, and just taking that feedback on board, we really just got some clarity as to our direction and where we think we want to be going and where we should be going based on our intentions and our goals and our mission, which always remains the same. We just wanted to really add some specificity and some direction to that mission and what we're doing here in every episode, right?
Exactly. I think one of the easiest ways to sort of just sum up what the Mood Booster podcast is it's the home of well-being and joy.
Doesn't that sound so good?
The Mood Booster in general is the home of well-being and joy. If you want to learn anything about how to improve your well-being, if you want tips, tools, advice on how to find joy in the everyday, how to speak about your emotions, the Mood Booster podcast is the place of that. It's the home of it. Yeah.
It is. So we have the well-being side where we really want to work towards helping individuals, giving tangible advice, tangible steps based on also evidence. Hence, I'm a doctor. I've got a PhD in psychology, years of research. So really tangible evidence that we know about and we know to be true or at least accurate based on the best available evidence that we have to date. But then also really focusing on the joy as well, and that remains the same, will always remain the same, and that's just us being us, reflecting, having our true open conversations still, but allowing ourselves to be goofy outside of the podcast as well in our other materials, our videos that we put out. So focusing on that well-being and giving real tangible focus and advice on that well-being while constantly reflecting ourselves, but also really lifting up that spirit and that joy and giving that its own space and its own sort of room.
Exactly. So if you guys, or if you didn't know what the Mood Booster podcast is or what really you're here for, just find it as a place where you can listen to some open reflections, but also gain some advice and some tools on how to improve your well-being or boost your mood on the daily. We're not here to give you massive wins. We're just here to overall give some advice and, from our own experiences and research, let you know how to boost your mood on the daily, just through the small little things as well.
That's the thing. And that's always our ethos, is the small things. Look after the small things, and those big things will look after themselves. And that's what we want to do.
I think so. That's exactly what we're here for.
Exactly that.
So, welcome. We just wanted to do a stock take, really.
Now those formalities are out of the way.
Now it's gone.
Now they're out of the way.
Now it's gone.
This also just extremely exciting and buzzing to my core about that, and just having that redirection and just constantly having the redirection. And in line with that, lots more other exciting things that we are constantly planning and working on. But I won't be that guy. I just was that guy.
Big things coming.
Yeah, here we are. I just
big news.
Can't help the excitement. How was your week?
My week, it's been good. It's been very, very enjoyable, actually. The main thing of this week, we were up in the Lake District over the weekend doing some filming, weren't we?
Yeah, we were.
Super exciting. So Thursday after work, we drove up to the Lake District. My friend Sol has a house there, a lovely farmhouse. His parents...
Big shout out the
Thorntons, Sol Thornton and my friend from school. His parents have a lovely house up there. And a while ago, when we did our first ever photo shoot with Sam Ashton, we were in the photo studio up in Leeds. It's probably where you've seen a couple of our pictures. He mentioned the idea of wanting to do something with some cars, something up in the Lake District, something with, these big views. And it sort of planted that seed of, we thought, well, what can we try and do here? What can we try and work on? So I reached out to Sol a while back now, just sort of floating the idea, saying, hey, we've got a videographer who's really interested to get some content. What do you think about us just coming up and making a short film?
What do you think about it?
So I reached out to Sol, and over a number of weeks or months, we've slowly started to get a date in the diary, started to get a plan, and Thursday evening we both drove up, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
To the Lake District.
Up the motorway.
Which was very exciting.
Yes, it was. We had a lovely weekend overall. It was, super successful.
Yeah.
We haven't seen the outputs yet, but we know we've seen brief bits, and it's just so exciting. It was jam-packed. So in our lunch break on Friday, we went and met with a company called Catherine and Aidan from Lovingly Artisan. And that's
what's the name of the bakery, Marcus?
Oh, guys, I made a faux pas. I said to Charlie beforehand. So I said to Charlie, I'm so bad with names, and someone could tell me their name a million times, and it's just a whole thing that I just can't retain it for a while. We start the recording of, so for context, we have a series on YouTube and socials, the Mood Boosts on Tour, where we go and we're going to be speaking to local community-based businesses to speak to them about what they do in their communities, how they lift their communities up, and sort of their passions, because it's really just beautiful to be able to speak to people who have passions and see their joy in their daily work. Anyway, this is the second in the series. We did one in Morocco with Sosie's Cookies. We started rolling, and immediately I got the name of their business wrong.
It was like...
And I didn't realise, so I was like, oh yes, so the Artisan Bakery, we're here with Catherine and Aidan from the Artisan Bakery. So Catherine, tell us about the Artisan Bakery.
Oh, God.
So here at Lovingly Artisan, and I was like...
Oh,
God.
It puts me on. I saw Marcus hold the microphone, this hand just trembling, just out of sheer fear.
Sheer
fear. We then, as we'd wrapped up, Marcus, rightfully so, said, could we do that whole intro again? I'm so sorry, but I got your name wrong.
I just thought there's no point pretending, like we all know what just happened there. I'll just say that I'm really bad with names, and I was just slightly nervous, so I just got your name wrong. And like, I'm not someone who's going to be like, oh, let's just try it again for the... Yeah, let's just name the elephant in the room. So we did that, and Yes.
That was brilliant, wasn't it, though?
It was insane. It was just so fun that it was pouring it down with rain. It'll be on our YouTube and our socials by now. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch it because it's a lovely video and they are super inspiring
They
and we
are.
learned a lot from them.
There are a couple, aren't they, who started their own bakery. I mean, Aiden, he's the master baker. He's been baking for like 20, 30 years now, 40 years now probably. But they've started their bakery number of years back now. And yeah, it's just seeing how they spread their love and their joy through their product is really what drew us to them as well. I think in general with our Mood Boost on tour, what we're going for is just finding these small businesses who we really resonate with as well. Like I actually asked Sol, we're coming up, this is what we want to film. Do you have any businesses in mind? And this was the one which stood out to him most. I think his dad had actually done some work for them, some like consulting work. But still, the people behind them, everyone knows them. Like everyone in different parts of the Lake District knew them by name. So they're like a really core business.
Well, they've won best sourdough in the country for like 3 years or
Best
something.
bakery as well.
Best bakery.
The BIA award.
Yeah. So it's pretty big stuff.
They're pretty good stuff. If you're ever near the lakes, lovingly artisan, you'll have the best bread of your life.
Yeah.
Genuinely not kidding. It's fantastic.
I won't. Yeah, I mean, we can go into it because the YouTube video is there, but just seeing all of their passion, their constant evolution and learning, and like you say, they've been doing it for 30+ years, and they've got grown children themselves. So
We're now working with them as well.
they're in their, I wouldn't like to guess, but let's say 50s or 60s themselves. And they're just continually wanting to do better and be better. And I feel like that sort of mantra is where people are successful.
It is. It's finding the joy in their work.
It's never just like let's just get to this goal and then just stagnate and be here. It's just someone that constantly wants to evolve and have ingenuity and innovation. And it's the joy that comes from it.
Yeah. Completely.
So yeah, it was just a proper adventure. It was absolutely peeing it down. We were just there with these umbrellas in front of their truck where they were selling all of their baked goods in the middle of Kendal. It was really fun. And then we spoke to the town crier. Yes.
That was great. Got a little video of me shouting, "Oh ye!" It's not hear ye, it's oh ye. I think it is ye-o or something like that. Ringing the bell, which was great fun. So that was the Friday, and then the Saturday and Sunday, we were up there just filming for both days. Saturday was a super wet and rainy day again, so we had to be a bit agile. Hence this episode. We had to be a bit agile in terms of our plans. Not everything went to plan as well. I think for me, it's a weird one because this is, a fairly new business to us both. I think this was one of the first times I've mixed proper friendship with business in terms of I'm bringing this business to someone outside of it. And I'm sort of using a connection there saying, hey, can I please, not use your house, but can we please make something work? And I think I was quite nervous to sort of just see how that played out. I didn't really want to, I was very apprehensive to annoy or use, for instance, anything that this friend or like Sol was giving me. But I think in doing that, there wasn't a huge plan which had been created timing wise as well. The last thing I wanted to do was go in and say, 9 a.m. can we do this? 11 a.m. can we do this? Can we use your car? Can we use this boat? Whatever it is, because that would have felt just like bossing them around. Whereas we actually had learned from the Saturday when things didn't go to plan, people were not on time, mainly us as well, that from the Sunday when we came in with a plan saying, hey, we want to start at this time, we want to be here at this time as well, went a lot smoother as well.
Yeah, I think it was like you say, we're learning in this situation, and obviously you and Sol have a years old friendship, so you just wanted to be careful there. And I think ironically, in trying to appease so much, you might have had the opposite effect in ways. And trying to please everyone, and then Sol was like, "What's going on? I don't know the timings. I'm trying to do this, that, and the other." And then you had Sam there also was incredibly gracious and patient and was just like, "We'll just whatever happens, which is so great." But then I was like getting impatient as well, being me. Like, why are we? How?
So it's managing different groups of people who, because I think I introduced the friendship. I think I felt partly responsible for trying to sort of, what's the word? Lead it, not lead, but spearhead it. And so I think just feeling that, seeing it not quite go to plan, just put me in a bit of a way. I think it was just having to be agile to the plan and just knowing that it would change. overall, though, it's a fantastic weekend. We
It
got a
was.
lot of good content, a lot of fun filming as well. Whenever this movie's released, I think maybe a couple months' time, you guys will be seeing it. It'll be absolutely brilliant. A lot of interesting stuff there. A lot of
It's
drone shots, car shots. It's cool.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So rewarding.
It was amazing. Yeah. Overall, a fantastic weekend. We got back late Sunday. And yeah, just back Monday and Tuesday, where it's been the hottest the UK has ever been. It feels like
So hot.
it's been ridiculous.
Just feels like there's no oxygen.
No oxygen.
Just can't breathe.
Can't breathe.
Yeah.
Overall, though, that was my week.
Yeah.
How was your week?
The same. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think if there's anything else, but no, I think it was the same. It was really nice. I just really enjoy. I like being in London. I'm not going to leave London anytime soon, but I really enjoy. I grew up in the countryside, so I just really enjoy being in the countryside and amongst those sorts of things.
Yep.
It was just really nice. Being in the Lake District, it's beautiful parts of the country. On the boat. Seoul has a boat, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Out on Lake Windermere on Sunday in the sun, which was nice. Um, Seoul's family were incredibly hospitable, and just you immediately felt at home, and it was just really sort of, I don't know, not refreshing because that implies that I've not experienced that before recently, but just for lack of a better word, refreshing how sort of at home, you know, Sandy and Gordon and Sol's family made us feel,
Yeah.
and just sort of mixed in amongst, had a lovely dinner on the Saturday night. Just felt like you were with a family you'd known for years. Yeah, it was just really nice, sort of heartwarming experience. And like I said, and I said to Sol as well, that I appreciate not only you doing this for the business, but also your you and Charlie are friends, and I'm sort of coming into this, and I not that I felt nervous about that or any type of way about that beforehand, but I guess it was just a matter of fact that was the situation. But very much felt part of and welcomed and encouraged, and yeah, like no other way other than just part of the furniture in that situation. So it was lovely.
I think what was really nice, I said it to you on the way back, was whilst they were excited to, see what the end result was, I think mainly the joy which I could see that the family were having from us was just having a great time. Like, we came back in from filming for hours out in the fields, and they were like, "You guys have a good time? Did you get the content you wanted?" They were more fussed for us just enjoying ourselves and just spending time there. Sure, they'd probably be really keen to see the actual product itself, see the film, but in a way, just seeing how hospitable they were, just seeing how welcoming they were as well. For me, I realized that just us being there, having a good time with Soul as well was probably their main priority.
Yeah.
Which was nice to see.
It was lovely.
Pardon my cough there.
God, that was unplanned, wasn't it?
Pardon me.
That cough was unplanned.
What?
I'm trying to give you a hook.
Oh,
Jesus.
God, I
Someone's
missed that one.
So slow this morning.
I missed that one. I apologise.
Just looking at me like,
What? What do you mean unplanned?
that was unplanned. So
Speaking of unplanned, how do you deal with things when life doesn't go to plan,
that's
Marcus?
so good.
I'm a great hooker. Whoa!
Oh.
Wait! I'm not a hooker.
Classic you. You are a fluid gentleman.
Hooker in rugby, maybe.
Okay. Okay. How do I deal with things when they don't go to plan? Awfully. My baseline is I'm bad at things not going to plan. I like routine, stability, predictability. I like familiarity, and I like even to the point of traditions. And I've done this every year. Like I said in the birthday episode, I've gone on a 10K run every year for my birthday, and it's just lovely to have that tradition. It's a similar thing. There's like a safety and a familiarity, and there's I don't. This is a really poor English, but like niceness to that.
Nicety.
Comfort in that.
Yeah.
Well, I already said comfort. Anyway, so typically myself, before having tried to develop and work on this at a baseline, not good at things not going to plan.
Yeah.
And I'm still bad at it. I'm not bad at it, but I'm not someone who finds it easy or doesn't care about it. So, for example, on the weekend when we were supposed to leave at 9 a.m., and it was 10 a.m. and nothing was still happening, I was like, okay, this is internally, I'm getting really agitated at this situation because there was a plan or an idea and it's not happening. Uh, and ultimately, what's going to happen? Nothing. It's just in my mind is a rigidity of, okay, well, there's not only the time being lost, but this is agreed and it's now not happening. And then it sort of just perpetuates just frustration in my mind and like, yeah, agitation of I'm the only one sitting here ready, which is just silly and so a stupid thing to think, but just all of those things that then go around and I just get wound up by things not going to plan.
Yeah.
Or even another thing as an example of having a plan and then not being agile. In a working day, if I think I've got an hour slot to do work and then someone's like, oh, can I have a meeting? Or someone calls me out of the blue, I have to really actively fight against my innate reaction to be like, no, you've got another plan. They can wait. To be like, no, you can just take that call. It's absolutely fine, because I'm so just rigid with things.
Where do you reckon that comes from? Were you like that as a child?
I don't know about as a child. I just think, where does it come from? I like, yeah. It's just knowing. I guess it's a control thing. Maybe a control thing of knowing, okay, well, this is what's going on, and I have predictability in that because it's what's been arranged. So therefore, if something comes out of that or deviates from that, sorry, it's I don't have control necessarily in that, and therefore I can't predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Even as something so small and menial as someone calling me out of the blue at work, I in that very moment my mind is just sort of, yeah, it's just a lack of rigidity, a lack of agility, and it is the rigidity of, I don't know. I can't change that, or I don't want to change what I've already got in my mind. So let's just they can wait, and we can find another time for that. And I do, even though I can't fully. I know there's other experiences I have that I can understand better, and I can't fully understand why I'm very rigid in that way. I do know that that's definitely a shared experience, and a lot of people have similar experiences. It's just, yeah, a comfort in knowing what's coming, and a comfort in also, for me, it comes, this is more of the plans and timekeeping and those sorts of things. This is, and again, not necessarily my thought on this isn't necessarily right, and I'm not necessarily correct in this moral high ground, but in my mind it's kind of like a, if someone's late or whatever, I kind of, because I'm like a loyal person, and I have sort of a loyal, respectful, punctual, they all go hand in hand to me, all of those things. So when someone's late or things don't go to plan in that way, and someone's sort of last minute says, oh, I can't do this, or can you push back an hour? It kind of, this isn't necessarily the case, and I'm not saying this is completely true, but I kind of feel innately like that's a disrespect in a way of, okay, well, we've agreed a time, or we've agreed to do this thing, and with no prior notice other than the last minute, you're just telling me that, or you're not even telling me, I'm just having to sit here waiting, and that's really frustrating because it feels like it's on some level a disrespect of my time. And I do think there is some truth in that, and not to the level that maybe I feel it, but I do feel like,
Yeah.
and that's why people pride themselves on being punctual. And there is, my brother, he's, I think I learned from him. Well, I didn't learn from him. We probably share the same values in that sense. He was in the RAF for years, and he prides himself on being like 1 minute early to every single thing.
Does he?
Because, yeah, being late is a huge, huge, it's
course.
discipline, and it's
Yeah.
bad discipline, and it's all of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But it's also respect to the person that you have that arrangement with.
Yeah.
And it shows respect and, yeah, discipline towards that.
Yeah, I guess
all of those
zooming out
things.
from being late to more just in terms of when life in general doesn't,
Yeah.
because some things, when life doesn't go to plan, it's not just about being late.
No.
It's about something else happening instead, or there being a curveball. So, for instance, on the Saturday in the Lake District, we were planning on filming on the boat. We weren't able to because there was so much rain, and it wouldn't have worked for what we wanted as well. So in that case, we had to be agile, and in that sort of sense as well.
Yeah, I say I'm bad, but then there's other times when it's out of my control, and I'm very much like, okay, well,
Yeah,
we can't do anything about it, so let's just press on and do something else that we can do.
yeah,
And I can't find a distinction necessarily between that. Maybe it's when there are things that, this sounds bad, and I guess I'm just being open here, so let's give me some grace. But like maybe if
Who's
there's
Grace?
who's Grace?
Who the hell's Grace?
If there's blame to be had, maybe I allow myself to be a bit more wound up,
Okay.
which is I'm saying that's not necessarily a good thing to have, because
Yeah.
that's on me to just let go of that.
Yeah.
But if there's something like the weather, I'm like, well, we can't help the weather, so let's. Whereas if someone, I don't know, says, oh, I don't want to do that anymore, we need to do this instead, or whatever it is, I don't want to keep talking about being late because that's just one thing of many, then it's kind of like, well, that's on you for doing that, and therefore it is a bit more frustrating. I don't know, maybe that is a distinction there, and it's not necessarily a correct one, but
Well, I guess the main thing is, which it all dials back to, and I know we're going to speak about the research on this and the theories behind it, but
sure.
it's how much you take into account your own reaction and how much you can distance yourself from the actual event itself. The last thing I want to do is come on here and, say I'm better or preach, but I'd say
How
in
are
terms
you?
of being agile, thanks for asking. In terms of being agile to a situation when something doesn't happen, I'd say I'm pretty good. Whether that's coming from my laid backness or I don't know, actually. I think since a young age, I've always had the ability to sort of step back, compartmentalize, and realize that my own reaction is what's the actual reality itself. Oftentimes, you can't control other people. Most of the time, you can't control others if they're late, if the weather's bad, if something crops up and you're like, I did not expect that, or I didn't even want that to happen. The only thing that I can control is my own reaction. And why, for me, that's always been important is because my reaction will dictate my mental well-being and my mental state as well. Now, very easily, I could sit there, become wound up, become frustrated, which would send me into a spiral. It would send me into this sort of vicious thing of blame, of being annoyed. And I think in some situations, you can allow yourself to feel that, or you can feel that because you have the right to as well. If you've agreed something, for instance, even being late, someone just shows up or doesn't even show up or doesn't say anything. In my work, it's a massive thing. In sales, if you've booked a meeting, someone just doesn't show up, it's disrespectful, it's rude, and it's all right to feel, hey, listen, we literally booked this in, where are you?
Yeah.
However, in saying that, and in sort of zooming out, when life throws you these curveballs, in any sort of capacity, when life throws you these sort of things, the only thing that you can control is how you want to think about it or feel about it as well. And I think something that I've always been quite good at is zooming out and basically thinking, is me thinking negatively about this situation actually going to help in the long run? It's a question I will always ask. So, for instance, on the Saturday, when we were running slightly late, I'd realised I hadn't told Sol a start time as well. So when he was getting ready, I had to be agile because I was thinking, right, this can't happen. It is what it is at this point. What can we do instead to try and get to our end point here? What's the quickest way right now to get to the end point? I'll deal with the repercussions later. Let me deal with what's in front of me right now as well. Now in that, afterwards, once we'd gotten a plan, I allowed myself to feel frustrated and a bit annoyed about the lack of direction as well. And I still felt that. But at the time of when it came up, for me, it was just more of a case of, this is what it is right now. What's the best way forward?
Yeah.
Because as of right now, if I don't go on the best way forward, or if I don't think what's the best way forward, it will just get worse and I'll get more annoyed.
Yeah.
So how can I practically avoid that spiral?
Yeah. I'm definitely a lot more aligned with that these days than I used to be.
I'd say you've gotten better at it, yeah.
100%. Like the Saturday was just full of that.
Yeah, it was.
Full of every half an hour a plan changing.
Yeah.
And internally, it's kind of like, well, what can you do? And yes, ultimately, when all of those things keep adding up, and at the end of the day, it's just a constant, and you've got to the end of the day, and the objective hasn't been met or has
That's annoying.
been completely reduced.
Yeah.
It is slightly frustrating, but at the same time, what can you do?
Yeah.
What we can do and what we did do was reflect on that and made changes for the next day, so we could completely implement those changes.
Yeah.
And what caused those unexpected changes, because that was something we could control.
Yeah.
And instead of, in the moment, I think we as a team dealt with it very well.
Yeah.
Knowing ourselves and like our different
approaches.
Yes.
Yeah.
And communicated as best as we could to actually I don't think there were any. Well, personally, I wasn't sort of. I don't remember there being sort of anything like that in terms of.
On the Saturday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just communicating well, and yeah, I think in the car when we were
I mean, I was
trying
a
to
little
film
bit
them.
like annoyed. We've already spoken about it.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's just that difference that in the moment we also know ourselves as well.
Yeah.
You know yourself, so to actually help yourself and be better, you took yourself off just to sort of calm down and patiently wait.
Yeah.
And I was there with Salt being like, this is what the plan is, this is what we're going to do as well.
Yeah.
I said to you in the car, like, I would have preferred that or this, but overall, we still achieved what we wanted to. And for me, that was the end product was still achieved.
Yeah. So in that frustration in the moment of things not going to plan, like you say, I just took myself off and remained sort of patient to just being like, okay, well, when things happen, they happen. And then later on in the car, when we were trying to film something, and then it was just like, okay, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go here. None of us could just come to a decision. And that was also could have been frustrating. Is like the just absolute decision paralysis on
Yeah.
every single basis.
Yeah.
Well, I think we both dealt with it well, and
I think so. Yeah.
I think
It was a tough situation in terms of having to balance, as I said, the personal relationship with Sam, with you, with me, just with the overall, goal of the business weekend as well. I think overall balancing it is tough anyway.
Yeah, so
Managing expectations.
from that, I think what I'm trying to say is there were times previously when either person, you maybe being more relaxed or me being too wound up,
Yeah.
could have been a lot more, heightened or agitated or whatever.
Yeah.
But going into that, we're both intentional with our reactions to things not going to plan,
Yeah.
to allow it to be a lot more harmonious than it could have previously been, or not just between us, but in any setting, and like I am all the time leading this run club, the Monday Mood Booster, there's always curveballs coming my way. And I'm always now just kind of thinking, okay, instead of getting wound up in the moment, or the place where we have bag drop saying, oh, you can't do bag drop here right now just as we arrive. Okay, well, I could get wound up, but in this moment, what's that going to do for me? It's not. I can't do anything about that.
Is it actually serving you best?
What I need to do is figure this out, because there's a whole club here relying on me. So let's lock in and get frustrated or annoyed about it later if I still need to. But right now, let's work on it.
It's really funny. Yesterday in our street interviews, when we were filming and asking the people of London, we were in Covent Garden asking people about how they deal with curveballs, what their sort of mottos or what they remind themselves of when things don't go to plan. I think is often something that it does allow you to show up better. Just categorically, it allows you to show up in these situations better. One of the questions we asked people was, what do you say to yourself to remind yourself when things aren't going to plan? Is there anything that you say? I think when I was speaking to the people, one of the overarching themes was, it is what it is. It is what it is, and it'll work out for the best. Life's always got a plan for you. It's quite a spiritual thing to think, especially in a moment when seemingly everything's going wrong. And it could often be quite hard. The last thing you want to hear when everything's going wrong is, it is what it is. You're like, oh, I don't want to hear that right now.
So much easier said than done.
It's so much easier said than done. But if you can somehow, in the moment when something's not going to plan, just say, it is what it is. I'll deal with how I want to react to it later. But what would best serve me in this situation, genuinely, for my own well-being and mental health, would be just to realize that it is what it is. All I can do is control how I react right now. That isn't saying to not allow space for how you feel, but in terms of your own sake, allowing that feeling for later on as well, and just saying, it is what it is. I'm going to deal with it best I can right now. What can I do?
Yeah, for sure. It's very very stoic.
It's very, very stoic.
And it is what it is. But it's not always possible, but if you can reach that space, it's really helpful. And I think that does lead to our first theory, which I'd quite like to talk about.
What is it? Yeah.
So Lazarus, in 1984.
Okay.
Cognitive appraisal theory. So the idea is our reaction to a stressful event or things not going to plan is based on or depends on our appraisal to that stressor or that trigger, as opposed to the trigger itself. So it's all about the cognition again, and as we were speaking about in previous episodes, how we interpret and how we appraise or how we see that trigger as opposed to the trigger itself. So the trigger itself doesn't mean we immediately have to react in a certain way. It's our interpretation that then changes how we react. Does that make sense?
So when you say the interpretation,
Yes.
that not just mean our reaction will relay how we react, or is it how we interpret what we associate with that action?
So it's breaking down the process of, okay, something doesn't go to plan, there's a reaction, which is frustration or anger. It's breaking that down and saying that there's something in the middle here, our appraisal of that thing not going to plan, or our appraisal in this instance, it's the cognitive appraisal theory, but our interpretation, another way to put it, our interpretation of that then influences the outcome or our reaction.
So for you, it's the disrespect or the lack of timekeeping. For instance, say someone's late, your reaction will be determined by that middle part.
Let me break it down even further.
Break it down.
So there's a breakdown of two different parts of the appraisal. There's the primary appraisal, which is this how we see the event in terms of, is this event a threat? Is it a challenge? Is it a challenge to my status quo? Or is this change or event, is it benign? Does it not really matter? That's our interpretation, and that's our primary appraisal. So that is one part of the interpretation that influences how we respond. The second part is more about ourselves and our ability to deal with whatever this change is. So it's the secondary appraisal, and it's more about, do I have the resources to deal with whatever this is? So it's combining those two things together, how we see it, whether it's a threat or not, but also our internal resources to deal with that threat or not, that shapes our overall reaction.
Okay.
So yeah, when things go off script, people often appraise the situation, for example, as a threat to, i.e., their stability, their identity, their well-being, and they feel that they may lack the control or coping resources to deal with that, and therefore see it as stressful and a trigger and something that they need to overcome.
Okay.
Or would send them in a spiral.
Yeah.
So that is the theory in itself, that it's your appraisal of that change or that unexpected experience that changes or influences how you then respond. So someone being late, I might see that as, like you say, my primary appraisal would be, well, that is a threat and that's a challenge. That's a challenge because they're disrespecting me. Well, that's a challenge because I had a plan here and now it's not going to plan. And that means the rest of my day is going to go off whack because everything else is going to have to be pushed back. And that's annoying, right? Okay. The secondary appraisal is then how I see that. So that's my internal status quo of, okay, well, that's a challenge into my day. That's really annoying. So then I'm thinking in terms of myself, I have limited resources. I'm already tired. I already feel like this person, maybe not, just an example, I already feel like this person doesn't respect me. I already feel low self-esteem. So it spirals into all of those things. I don't know if I've just whistled over the low self-esteem there too quickly without breaking it down.
It could be if you have internal dialogues or internal schemas about yourself which are triggered by these people or by these actions, and that could easily lend itself, as you've just said there, to, for instance, say you've got a work colleague, someone who you admire, and you're a little bit already feeling like they don't respect you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
They're then late. That would instantly trigger that, so you'd feel disrespected.
Exactly.
And thus you'd react worse.
Yeah.
Because you have all these beliefs. Whereas I imagine on the flip side, it's someone who's maybe below you or someone who you don't respect as much maybe, and you're not really as caring. And if they're like, hey, can we please push it back? Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Like
for me, I know when I have these clients I work with, someone who I'm not really keen to speak to anyway, and they say, hey, I'm running late. It's like, cool, do whatever you want. Yeah. I'm like, absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was someone, a much bigger client who I'm really keen to get on with, really looking forward to as well, that would actually impact me differently. Whereas the same situations happen. A person has said they're running late. I would interpret that differently and thus maybe react differently as well.
Yeah, for sure. And that comes back to potentially if there was someone like a manager linking it back to your internal side. Maybe if you were relying on that manager to their behavior towards you sort of validated your esteem, for example, or your position in the business, and therefore them treating you well made you feel better about yourself within the business or in a working capacity. And if they didn't treat you well, you're like, oh, well, I already feel like I'm not doing well here, or I'm not respected in the workplace, or I'm a bad employee, and now my manager's not even caring about my time. Then there must be So that's just one
Yeah.
small example. It's not
Yeah.
small, but one sort of very specific example
Yeah.
of the secondary appraisal or your internal schemas that help or shape, sorry, your interpretation of
Yeah.
that. But the primary one is, yeah, how you actually see that the event or the change itself initially, in terms of externally, is it a challenge or is it benign, or is it something that's pushing your day back, or is
Yeah.
it something that, yeah, is meaning that everything else, your objective to get a video shot is now not necessarily going to happen because
Yeah.
there's just not the time in the day, whatever it is, that's the primary appraisal.
Yeah. Wow.
Coupled with then, yeah, like I say, the secondary, which is my coping or my
Your internal,
resources to cope
your
with that.
resources.
Yeah.
It's
You could,
interesting.
sorry,
Sorry, go ahead.
you could see it kind of like a a balance. So all about balance as always. It's like a weighing scale. So
Yeah.
if the you want the weighing scale of the primary and the secondary appraisal,
Yeah.
I interpret this way to be equal. So if it's a challenge, you have the resources to meet that challenge.
Yeah.
Whereas if the challenge is too high here, but your resources are too low, then it's more stressful because the challenge outweighs the resources, if that makes sense.
It does. Well, then how does one get better resources? How does one improve their resources?
Wow, that comes on to the advice.
Oh yeah, of course, which we'll be giving later on. Yeah.
Yes,
Some tools
exactly.
and tips.
But this theory itself poses that, in terms of that, people with
Mm.
high psychological flexibility, which again we'll come on to, but psychological flexibility are more likely to reframe that situation as an opportunity to grow as opposed to a threatening challenge, and
Yeah.
therefore see it less stressful because it's more of an opportunity as a than a
Got it.
threat.
Okay.
And that comes down to the flexibility there, and therefore we can work on our psychological flexibility, all of us, which will then obviously help our well-being and
Yeah.
what we're here to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I interestingly did very similar. So my theory in my PhD was the family stress theory,
Mm-hmm.
unrelated, but it was all about meeting an equilibrium from your coping mechanisms to your threats to your resources. So families that feel like, in terms of conduct disorder and dealing with stressful, having a child with a disorder and violence and aggression and things, it meant that their resources were limited, but their stresses were way higher. So this seesaw was way out of whack for all of these families because they had very limited resources, no time, no social support, no professional support,
Okay.
limited coping mechanisms because they were exhausted, they were being physically attacked by their children, but also then, yeah, those stresses were so high because they were scared in their own homes, their child was beating other children up in the school, all of these things. So that there was no equilibrium there. There was no balance of resource to challenge.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of weight there. Sorry to pardon the pun, but a lot of weight there. That there's validity there.
Yeah.
That our brains are always trying to meet an equilibrium, and if we can, for this instance, use this theory to just add some nice visual to that, it visually shows that our brains seeing the challenge and our resources and trying to find a balance there.
Yeah.
I don't know how just yeah,
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
it's interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but also we like some neurobiology here.
Okay.
I do have some research. I hadn't heard of this research before myself, but I did find it very interesting reading up on it. It's a systematic review in 2013. And it's again looking at specific brain regions. So yes, Grupe and colleagues, GRUPE,
Group.
and colleagues in
Cool name.
2013, they were saying that basically uh, our stress around these things changing is more around anticipation of uncertain future threats rather than the presence of actual danger itself. So it's all about
Oh.
anticipation and
Not
fear
trusting
and
the
worry.
process.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
Not trusting the process,
Not believing that we've all got a plan.
and again, your anticipation as opposed to,
Yeah.
or your interpretation as opposed to trusting the process and knowing actually that this thing itself isn't this change isn't this ominous change. It doesn't need to be. It's our anticipation of what that means, our interpretation of what that means.
Yeah.
And if again we could then reshift that, then we can work towards that. But they they looked at a brain region, basically the anterior cingulate cortex in the brain.
Is that behind the firewall?
Behind the firewall, malware, all of the above.
Got
But this part of the brain is known to monitor conflicts and errors.
Yeah.
And in their research, in their review, they found that when in, again, functional magnetic resonance imaging studies, so brain scans, fMRI studies, this part of the brain was more active and lit up when participants were put in situations where things didn't go to plan.
Okay.
So yeah, in anxiety, it's hyperactive when people anticipate unpredictable outcomes. So again, it's about the unpredictability and the anticipation of the threat as opposed to the threat itself, and the anxiousness around that. And shown through evidence, this part of the brain is lighting up more so when people are put in unpredictable, potentially
Yeah.
threatening situations.
So interesting. I don't want to be reductive about this, but one of our main themes that we speak on, and over the weekend we've actually decided to make this one of our pillars as well, is presence and gratitude. Being present is such an underlying theme of everything that we speak about, is how much joy or your well-being is stemmed in presence, and knowing that this is the only moment ever. From what I was picking up for a lot of what you were just saying there, was that the anticipation, the future, whilst it lights up certain areas of the brain, in my mind, and tell me if I'm wrong, that is all centered around living with this idea of where you should be and worrying that the future is going to go badly because this thing will trigger that as well. And on the flip side, that I don't want to come here and say just be present and know that as well, because that's too reductive.
Yeah.
But in my mind,
Yeah, no, I was thinking.
yeah. But in my mind, the anticipation, the worry that it's going to go badly, or that you're not going to end up where you think you should be, because of this adverse thing happening to you.
Yeah.
In my mind, is just something that people hinge on, because the idea of a future is safe and it's lovely and it's nice and comforting, whereas knowing that this moment right now is the only thing to actually exist. I know it's a lot more of a spiritual sort of mindset to take, but let's just take back on Saturday. Let's say we had this worry, certain area of the brain was lighting up because you were worried or you were anticipating that we weren't going to get stuff done. I know it's easy to say and not easy to do, but just saying, okay, we're in this current moment. How can we benefit ourselves the most?
It can be easy to do. That's what we're here to.
It can be. It's often not, but it can be, I think, by letting go of that anticipation and just saying that anticipation and that worry does not serve me.
Yeah.
It does not. It actively harms me. It reduces my well-being. It causes me stress. It causes me anxiety.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to not feel those things. If you can, just let it go and know that the actual moment that you're in now, do some breathing, do some, touch the chair you're on or feel the ground that you're on. These are all things that we can do just to root ourselves back to the present moment and know that right now is the only moment that we're ever alive. I don't want to just throw all that research, but it's a good thing to realize.
I completely agree with you.
It stems in the future.
Yeah, and if, as this is showing, if we're worrying about the future and anticipation of the uncertainty, like you're right, it's thinking about, okay, well, what does this mean for what's to come, and therefore your those parts of your brain that deal with the anxiety and that deal with those potential threats or uncertainties are more active in that, and it's how we can then again potentially, whether we want to be psychological about it and say, okay, this is us using cognitive reframing, or whether we want to be maybe more spiritual about it and be like, okay, well, all we have available to us is the present, so let's not worry about the future. Either way, I think the goal is the same, is actually allowing yourself to reframe our initial interpretation of whatever is changing in that moment, and see it to be potentially either not a challenge, sorry, an area for growth, or something that just simply we can't control, and therefore we will be fine because it will always be fine, and it is what it is. However we spin it, whether it's psychologically informed from a cognitive perspective or a spiritual perspective, I think it comes back to the same thing, right? Of trying to change our interpretation and just allow ourselves a bit more of that presence in the moment of knowing it will always work out. It always does.
It always does.
So all we have available to us is ourselves and our behavior and our reaction. So do we allow ourselves to get really anxious and angry and lash out at our business partner or lash out at our colleague or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Or do we, yes, that there's time and space for that, and we're not here to negate or neglect our feelings, but in this moment, can we reframe that and see, okay, this is frustrating, fine, but all I have available to me is me and my present moment. Let's work on it, and let's see how in this moment we can turn this around and grow from it.
I'd like to hear your thoughts on this after this, but I do believe it's a choice, a conscious choice that we can make, and we have the power to make as well. I think in certain situations it's harder, as we've just said, from whether your resources outweigh the challenge or not. But I do believe that choosing the it is what it is a choice as well. I heard something quite interesting recently. It was about happiness and sadness, but I think it can be very easily related to this topic as well. It's if you choose sadness, if you choose to sit in your sadness, sit in your anxiety, if anyone tries to give you happiness, you will not accept that because you've chosen the sadness. Whereas if you choose the happiness and the peace, if anyone comes at you, if you're consciously choosing the peace and that it is what it is, no one can take that away from you because you're choosing it.
Okay. You're interested to hear my thoughts.
I am.
I agree to a certain extent.
What?
Oh, classic.
What?
On the fence? No, I'm not on the fence. I will elaborate.
Please.
Again, as we do, speaking to my own experience, I have actively chosen in the last however long months, years, to interpret these things differently, and therefore change my behavior to someone being late, to having to not film in a certain place because it's raining. I have actively chosen to not let that wind me up or stress me out as much as it might once have done. So I completely agree with you that that is my doing, and in doing so, I have been able to have a more fruitful, enjoyable, optimal experience in that. However, I don't necessarily completely agree, because we, in the instance of, for example, I don't know, let's say yesterday, I hadn't mentioned in the beginning, but I felt awful yesterday. I had a really rough day, and my mind was just in the gutter. I was extremely low, and I actually cried numerous times, and just hadn't felt like that for ages. And I'm feeling way better today already, but just yesterday, everything just felt like, what's the point? And it was just a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
In that moment, there's nothing I can do. And even you said to me, I can't use this toolkit. I can't use these things to pull on to make myself better. I just have to sit here and know that it will pass and be hopeful that it will pass, because no cognitive reframing, no, oh, but you've got this to look forward to, or this is going to be better, was taking me out of that.
That wasn't necessarily a curveball though, was it?
But that's just one example. To then elaborate further, if people suffer with, which they do, clinical anxiety,
Of course.
or clinical depression or anything like that, where they have severe anxiety to the point where things need to be planned, or any other generalized anxiety disorder, or any disorder that falls within that category of anxiety disorders, these are real symptoms that are potentially neurobiologically rooted, that can't necessarily, they can be worked on through therapy and things, but can't necessarily just easily be, oh, well, it's up to you to just change your perspective of it.
The last thing I'm trying to say is don't choose how you feel. I think we have the capacity as humans to feel the lows and feel the highs completely. It's more in the context of an it is what it is situation, not in terms of feeling. So for instance, yesterday, less than it being a curveball, happiness was not present for you yesterday, which is absolutely fine. What I was saying, and this wasn't me telling you what to do or how to feel, was be at peace with the fact that you also can feel these lows as well. It doesn't define you. That sadness, that crippling anxiety doesn't define you. You're not that anxiety. You are Marcus, who feels these things, as like everyone does. Maybe you don't have the resources to say, I'm going to be present, so I'm going to feel joy. Maybe you don't have the resources or the tools to try and trigger that happiness or try and trigger that joy. But through sitting peacefully with these sad feelings as well, I imagine, and through talking about them, you take the power away from them because you let the feelings flow through you. You let them flow through you. Now, I'm not trying to, this isn't me saying for someone who's got a disorder or a neurobiological disorder with clinical anxiety, just let it feel it, just feel it and let it flow. It's not quite that. But in the context of a curveball that life will throw you, it's It's how much can you sit there and realize that you actually do have a choice to say, my reaction is a choice, thus will dictate how I feel.
Yeah. So maybe in what you're saying is more speaking to the typical population who might not necessarily be dealing with an anxiety disorder.
It's a very generalized topic. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to give a blanket
No, for sure.
how-to for everyone.
Which is generally what we're doing anyway.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, no, I think there is definitely truth in that, and I'm like I started with, I'm testament to that myself.
Yeah.
I have chosen to reframe my interpretation, and what I guess also is important to say is the baseline is always there.
Yeah.
And the innate response is there, but it's how I interpret and then behave towards that that it is something that I have chosen to adapt and change. But I am someone who, I think, from my perspective, innately has a high threat sensitivity, as we were speaking about before. They're all interlinked.
Yeah.
The threat sensitivity comes with that. So because I'm a high threat sensitivity, I'm thinking about the negative outcomes of things not going to plan and what's going to go wrong from that and all those things. I'm less laid back in that sense.
Yeah.
But that's an innate thing that I have in that threat sensitivity. So when that thing doesn't go to plan, again, the spiral that this is just, again, it's all going wrong. It's not necessarily. And that's where I'm choosing to reframe that innate knee-jerk reaction.
Different question for that.
Sorry, carry on.
I think as well, something interesting to know is how much do you judge yourself for feeling those things as well? Because I think that's also something to play in as well. In my mind, it's good or bad, whether you have the ability, as you're saying that you, whether it's being less laid back or whatever, you feel these things or you might spiral quicker. When you're spiraling, do you also judge yourself?
100%, which is so annoying.
In itself, then, is that the thing to work on instead of the ability to spiral or not to spiral? Because that can happen to everyone, and people have different degrees of spiraling.
We just get into a never-ending cycle of...
Is the judgment of your thoughts and feelings actually the part which is playing to...
Yeah.
But so could you sit in that spiral, for instance? I'll let you speak once. Sorry, I just cut you off there. But when you see yourself spiraling or doing that, I imagine it's very easy to say, why am I spiraling? Why am I doing this? Do you think... and I don't know if this is a choice or not, so correct me here, but do you think that you'd be able to allow yourself to say, I'm spiraling and it's bloody terrible, but I'm going to let it because it's fine. And I'm just going to sit with that as well.
Yeah, so I am really bad at that, and I continually beat myself up for feeling agitated and needing to work on that. And I'm like, why can't I just be someone who's not agitated in this situation, or who doesn't care so much about this?
Yeah.
And then it's a spiral of I'm feeling bad about feeling bad about feeling bad about feeling bad, and you just continue going down that. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So you're right, it's trying to be like, reframe that to say, well, yes, I'm someone with a high threat sensitivity and I get wound up by things not going to plan. However, let me first, in the first level of this, work on that and reframe that. In the second level, let me try to not judge myself for that knee-jerk reaction and needing to reframe that. Let me remind myself that actually I am a very successful person because I have plans and because I need things to go to plan, and because of all of these things that make me who I am. I'm a sensitive person, I'm a caring person. All of these things go hand in hand and make me who I am. So let me try and not judge myself for being that way, and remind myself that actually, yes, I'm rigid in this way, but it means that I'm a reliable, trustworthy person that people know will show up for them, that will be able to start a run club, will be able to start a business, all of these things. Because if I was someone who was a lot more laid back, these things might not have ever happened, because of all of these things that go into being someone with sticking to plans and all of those things. So yes, sometimes it might be agitating, but I try to remind myself from a cognitive perspective, it's okay that you're getting wound up by it, because yes, you can look at the person next to you and be like, oh, they're so relaxed, why can't I be like that? But they're also not you, and they don't have your qualities, and they're not as successful in X, Y, and Z as you are. And if they were great, they also, there's a million and one things that they might be different at to you.
So in my mind, hearing that, it's not necessarily the actual spiral itself which is the bad thing. It's how you judge yourself for the spiral, or how you judge yourself for the reaction as well. just say, for instance, you were spiraling like yesterday. You're like, I feel terrible. But because you don't judge yourself badly for feeling that negative, emotion, you can sit with it and observe it, knowing that, hey, I have the capacity to feel deeper than other people. That's me. That's also okay.
Mm.
You would feel that stuff to the extent of it.
Yeah.
My question, and something that I think we're reflecting, will continue to do so, is questioning yourself: how much is the judging of that emotion or the judging of that spiral actually what is the thing which is furthering it and furthering your negative
Mm.
feelings?
Um, I think yes, and it does feed into a bigger picture, but I
It
do
does,
think
yeah.
keeping it simple and for also simple advice, there's just a lot of things that can be done
Of course.
for in the moment. I'm just seeing this to be an adverse stressor when I could
Yeah.
reframe that and actually see it differently and see that and appraise that differently and
Yeah.
see it to be an area of growth as opposed to challenge, or see it to be something that could be rewarding in the long run as opposed to a threat to my well-being. And I think it's important to maybe start there, and
Yeah.
if we can allow ourselves to do that, then we can build upon that
Yeah.
potentially.
Well, I think speaking of that,
Yeah.
one of the main things that, as we said in the beginning of this episode, what we want to do is make sure that we give you the tips and the tools so that whenever you feel like this, you can really handle these situations and sit comfortably with this as well. From your research and your theories, we can give some really good, tangible advice so that you know how to handle this. I think something that you've been saying a lot, which I've been picking up on, is the reframing, is how you see the actual event itself.
Yeah.
I know I've spoken about differently, but one of the main things that you can do, from what I've picked up, from when this adverse situation occurs, is how you see it. Do you see it as a an annoyance, something that isn't going right, or do you see it as a challenge? Can you frame it in your own mind as a battleground to test your skills, for instance? So say Saturday, this event came up, timings weren't going right, it was raining. Option A, path A, oh, I see this as a bad thing. I see this as something which is annoying. Why are we late? Option B, this is a challenge. How do I, seeing this, go about making this as best as I can? How do I, try and reap the rewards from this?
Yeah.
So I think the main thing is, can you reframe it? See it as a challenge. See it as you testing out your skills and seeing if you can achieve what you want to achieve.
Exactly.
I think that reframing is a really good thing that if you can try and nail,
Yeah.
you've got it.
Yeah, definitely. That is exactly what it comes down to. And if we wanted to put psychological terminology to it,
Yeah.
cognitive reframing,
Cognitive.
which is in line with cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's changing your interpretation of. So A is the event that's happened, B being your interpretation, and C being the outcome, if we just want to add labels to it.
Yeah.
Is reframing B from your interpretation as a bad thing, exactly as you say, to this is an area for growth. This is something that, yes, is maybe uncomfortable, but also could be exciting, could be something for me to learn from, all of those things. So therefore, your C, your behavior, your outcome is changed.
Yeah.
And it's that reframing, that cognitive reframing that you just very clearly said is
Yep.
exactly the first thing that I think will help most people, and it's definitely helped me.
Completely. One other thing you said earlier, which I want you to sort of speak on more, is building psychological flexibility. I know you said it in your research. If so, for you listening here, how do they build psychological flexibility? How do you get more psychologically flexible?
I think so. The psychological flexibility comes from acceptance and commitment therapy, which is about actually, importantly and excitingly, being present and allowing yourself to be present. And again, importantly, sticking to your values in times of stress and times of unpredictability. So yeah, it teaches you to. So this is a form of therapy, acceptance and commitment therapy. We're not saying go into this therapy, but it's just sharing
Use some techniques from it.
Exactly. It teaches you to stay present and act in line with your values, even when your path changes. So, Hayes and colleagues in 2006 found it to be an effective form of therapy for coping with unpredictable or stressful situations or changes. In their research, they found it actually, and again, this is just one bit of research, but they actually found it to be more effective than cognitive behavioral therapy, traditional. But yeah, I'm not here to debate that. I just want to share the tips, and we want to share those
Of
tips.
course.
So it's naming. The first thing is naming what you can control in
What
that
can you control?
situation,
Yeah.
and therefore your response. What you can control is your response, and naming that in that situation and being aware of that. It's noticing the discomfort in that change, but not resisting it. Noticing it, but not resisting
So don't
it.
judge it.
Don't judge it.
Don't judge the resistance.
Exactly.
I've been saying it since day one. So
Exactly.
you see this adverse effect. You can say, I don't feel very good. I feel impatient.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to, don't resist the impatience or don't resist the change.
Mm-hmm.
Allow it to flow
Mm-hmm.
because whatever path you're on is meant to be.
Exactly. So naming what you can control, which is your response. All I can do in this situation is respond to this
Yeah.
how I can. I can't control what's happened, but I can control my response. My response. It's then, like you say, or like I say, the discomfort, knowing that that's okay, not resisting it, but just naming it and sitting there. That if you try and judge it, like you say, you might then spiral. Exactly. So
Yeah.
just allowing that, but not necessarily really leaning into it as well, just being present with it, and then anchoring yourself to your values. So, who am I in this situation? How would I usually behave? What do I believe in?
Who do I want to be?
Who do I want to be? What do
Yeah.
I want to get out of this situation? Whatever this change is, whether it's my manager giving me a last minute change or giving me
Yeah.
a deadline for tomorrow morning. What do I want to achieve? What are my values? What are my goals in this situation? And how can I align with that, and respect myself and respect my
Yeah.
values in my response, which is the first thing, my control, my response to
Yeah.
this, whilst being in discomfort as well, and allowing that, but just really focusing on what you can control and in line with that, staying true to your values,
Yeah.
and therefore responding in a way that's in line with who you are and your values.
Something that I do whenever I need to stay present and the situation's getting difficult is, I'm trying to think, okay, stay present. You can only control how you react. I've got some little go-to things I actually do. I think I've mentioned it before. Breathe. 4 or 5 deep breaths. It grounds me and it reminds me I'm in my body. I'm here. This moment is real. Touch the chair you're on. Feel the ground with your feet. Touch something. Just realize I'm here. It takes you out of your own head, puts you back into reality. Because so often when these things go wrong, you're actually in your own head, catastrophizing it in your own head. The judging happens, and that's when the spiral starts.
Yeah.
If you can somehow bring yourself back to reality of just breathe for a bit, 4 or 5 deep breaths, touch the chair you're on, feel I'm here. I can't control what they've done. I can only control how I react. Who do I want to be in the situation? That is, I think, going to do worlds for you.
And that's also part of this model, is not only acknowledging what you can control, aka your response, but very much in doing so, letting go of what you can't control, and allowing that lack of control to flow through you, and being okay with, okay, well, I can't control that, and that, but what I can control is this. And really, actually, that's easy to say, but really doing that mental work in that situation to think about that. And even if that's writing that out, this has really stressed me out. Okay, well, this has come my way. This problem at work has come my way, or this last minute change. I'm getting really stressed. Let me write it down. What in this situation can't I control? Okay, I can't control my boss's in this moment, I can't control my boss's lack of predictability. I can't control the deadline. I can't control this thing. What can I control in this very moment? I can control my response to it. I can control if I can reschedule some things, and I can control also, it's also thinking about the future planning as well, not just the immediate response. In future planning, you're allowing yourself some more of that flexibility and some more of that sort of grace and
Decorum.
sort of acceptance and decorum in that moment. In this moment, I can control how I immediately respond. What I also can control is my future planning. So whether that's letting my boss know or asking in the future, please, can you give me more when things have calmed down? Can we work on scheduling so we have more time to work on deadlines in the future? That's something you can control in the future, and knowing that, yes, that's not something I can do immediately, but I'm making a plan for myself in the future. Does that make sense?
It does completely.
So yeah, right now I can't control my boss being tardy with their timing or whatever it is, but that is something that I can pick back up and give myself the grace for and the worthiness for, because I deserve that, right?
I think the next sort of tip or tool that we have for you is that goes really well into that, as well as the first one of the reframing is creating an what then or an if then or a plan B, a contingency plan. Is, say for instance our podcast tech fails. One of the wires, this actually happened back in the New Forest about 2 months ago now. We were trying to film, we went out for 2 hours in the freezing cold. It was bitter, the wires weren't working, we just couldn't control it. We just thought, this is terrible. We were starting to spiral. When we got back into the car, we were thinking, okay, we've got all this content of us failing. We can't control the tech failing. What we can control is how we respond to it. So that's the reframing. Now the if what or the contingency plan is, well, now what do we do? This can often restore a sense of agency. We then create a blooper. We then create a funny reel saying, POV, your podcast tech doesn't work, whatever it is. It's creating
We
that.
never did that. We never did that.
We didn't get onto that, to be fair.
but yes, sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
no, yeah. Creating that contingency plan can often restore that sense of where you thought you weren't. So, for instance, when we were on Saturday, we were slightly late or it was raining. We thought, what can we do? We went into the market and we said, let's just shoot something in the rain. It'd be funny anyway. Creating that plan, just being like, you know what? Let's try this thing. Can often bring back that equilibrium that you were saying about earlier instantly.
Yeah.
It snaps back.
In line with that, the if then sort of work, it's not only, I think that also helps for future thinkers as well, because it allows you to, it's a bit like a risk assessment. So if you know you're someone who is not agile to things changing last minute, going into, let's say, a weekend of things where you've got loads of plans ahead, you can make yourself a plan that says, like you're saying, okay, if this goes wrong, then I can do this. So, for example, going to the New Forest and filming, if for some reason we can't do it that morning, then we have this other day we can do it. And in that moment, just that logic there, if and when it did go wrong, instead of panicking and be like, this is all a failure, we can't do this, we don't have anything, we just have that a bit of that cognitive or that anchor in our mind to say, okay, well, I've got a contingency plan here because I've said if this happens, I've got another backup. And it's just that those practical things as well that allow you, it's not just the reshaping, but it's those practical contingency risk assessment plans that give yourself the space and the grace to be able to be agile and think on your feet.
It can be as simple as if you miss your morning workout or miss a gym workout, you can say, I'm going to go on a run at lunchtime instead. Not judging yourself for missing it, knowing that maybe something cropped up. It's just creating another plan. It gives you that sense of agency back. Something might have happened. You control your reaction and you create a contingency plan. I'm going to go on a run at lunchtime instead. Whilst it didn't go to plan A, plan B, and you still get what you wanted to do initially as well.
And it comes back to the flexibility as well, I think, because I'm someone that would typically be like, oh, that didn't go well, let's just spin the whole thing off. Or like, I didn't go on a run today, or I didn't go to the gym today, I'm just going to go tomorrow instead. But actually, let's break it down. It doesn't have to be the whole catastrophized, the whole thing written off. If that hasn't gone to plan, there most likely is still a way that it can go to plan. So then what do we do, right?
It's like having a glass of water. You spill a bit as you trip and you're like, all right, you just chuck the whole water out. You're just there just absolutely leathering all the water over the place. Just because you spill a bit doesn't mean the rest of your glass has to empty.
That is a profound analogy.
I did get it from the internet. I'm not going to try I'm not going to try and serious Atlas and Stoic. It is a really good analogy though. Just because a little bit of water doesn't leave your glass, don't just chuck the whole thing out.
Great stuff. Love that from you or the internet.
Thank you, internet.
I'm sweating so much.
This is so hot. This is so warm.
I think finally, it's just important to say, and very much what you've been speaking about this whole time, is the self-compassion.
Completely.
I've been trying to do this myself, and I think it's been really helpful having, supportive friends like you around, or just the growth I've been doing over the last however long is in self-compassion. It's what we're saying is, and what you've been saying this whole time, is reminding yourself that it's okay to be agitated in the situation, and it's okay to be uncomfortable with this going wrong, and that's not a bad thing. It just means that you care. It means that you're someone that likes to plan, and that you're someone who is predictable and all those things. And if you can just give yourself some grace in that moment to just sit with that discomfort, you can then allow yourself to sort of think more objectively, think more clearly, and just
respond better,
respond more objectively, and sort of with everyone's best interests there.
Yeah.
Because if you have that situation come on, you're like, firstly, this always happens to me. Secondly, this is just so annoying, and I can never get anything right. It's perpetuating
You're
everything going
spiraling.
wrong, and all of again, your appraisal of that situation is I'm someone who can't do things well. I'm someone where things go wrong.
Yeah.
I'm someone that can't deal with things. If you get there, all of those secondary appraisals, right? If you give yourself the compassion and just give yourself a bit of space and grace to 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 deal with that and just to take that on in a moment and just think, okay, this is okay that it's happened. I'm not a bad person. I'm also not a bad person for feeling agitated. I can be stressed, but at the moment I also need to respond to this.
Yeah.
That's okay. You're then changing the secondary appraisal and you're reframing those resources to say that I am someone that is rigid. That's fine, but let me work on it and I do have the power to do that, as
Yeah.
you were saying.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. It's just, do you judge yourself, or do you? I think it all comes back to realistically self-acceptance and self-love, knowing that you're enough, knowing that truly, and internalizing that you're enough. Sure, you might have your flaws, but you have your strengths. You are in yourself enough, and knowing that means that when you show up in a situation, sure, you might feel more impatient than others, or sure, you might get more agitated. That's absolutely fine because that's you and you love yourself. And it's not judging yourself for feeling those things as well.
Mm,
Allows you to then say, yeah, I'm agitated and I'm annoyed. That's also okay.
yeah.
So it's just the self compassion. Talk to yourself kindly. It's difficult in these moments
Mm-hmm.
of stress. It is, but can you figuratively give yourself a pat on the back? I think it also lends itself to a bit to the previous episode when we were talking about the third person effect, the positive self talk.
Mm.
Can you talk to yourself positively in that way? Say, for instance, you're like, okay, Marcus, you're not being very patient. Can you sit there and say, you've got this, Marcus, just breathe, be patient, you can control your reaction, come on, see yourself in the third person, talk to yourself in that way, and you'll react better.
It's so funny you say this. I didn't think to bring this up, but yesterday
Yeah.
things didn't flipping go to plan. I was so upset already, as I've said, and then
Yeah.
we were going in to do street interviews, and the tube took like an hour, and it was just ridiculous, and it was boiling
Terrible.
hot. And we were like, okay, we just need to do something here. So we got off and went to get bikes to cycle in from Hyde Park. The line bikes, there were no line bikes. The traffic was awful. It was hot, and I kept getting a line bike, and then the line bike would be gone, and I'd go to another one, and it would be gone, and then I was just getting more and more wound up.
Bad
I was
situations.
in a foul mood, and in that
I'm not
moment,
saying you're not sort of stay in a while.
I was so angry, and I just like so angry that I had this energy that I'm not an aggressive person, and I literally couldn't. I wouldn't even know how to begin to, but I
Mm,
just felt like I needed to like punch something or whatever. I was just so wound up, and again, I wouldn't even know what to, or
yeah.
how to punch something, to be honest. But I was just so wound up.
Yeah.
I'll get there to what I'm saying about it.
Long
And then
story.
I went to get the Santander bike, and then the Santander, and I'd already spent money on it anyway. So then we were cycling, and you were obviously just thinking, well, just trying to be compassionate, but
I was
not
just
knowing what to do. And
No,
I
I
was
was just keeping on my own lane, just saying, give him space. That was what I was doing. It's all I could do.
Anyway, we got to this to the place at Covent Garden, and you very rightfully were like, and sensibly, let's just go have a quick drink and just
Sit down.
have a sit down before we start the work we need to do. And I was like, yes, and obviously did that, but was still just, and again in that moment was so angry, but so angry at myself for being angry, and was
Judging.
so just viscerally upset at myself and the situation, and just wanted, I had all of this upset that just was so ridiculous if you zoom out, but so I just didn't know where to place it and was just so annoyed
Mm.
off the back of having such a low day of feeling awful about everything. And why I bring it up is I went to the loo. I haven't done this for ages, but based off of what you were saying and our work, was in the loo saying
Oh.
things are okay, Marcus. You're in Covent Garden. You're about to do street interviews with your business partner, your best friend, and you're gonna have a lovely evening. The sun's out. And I just kept repeating that over and over to myself. And yes, I didn't feel immediately better, but it definitely had a shift somehow. I don't know
Yeah.
what it was, but
Mm.
it was that third person talk and that just compassion to myself and just
Goes a long way.
all of the things
Goes a long, long way.
based on how atrocious I felt
Yeah.
before that to afterwards.
There was a difference when you came back. I don't know what. Yeah, I just thought just like a bit of space and maybe splash your face. But it's good to know that you were able to use the third person effect and speak to yourself in the third person.
Yeah.
Give yourself grace for feeling that way.
Yeah.
And it go better.
It worked.
It works.
Not fully. We then continued to talk, and that was helpful in those things. But it allowed me the space to be able to at least just then open up and say this, this, and this, which then, yeah.
I love that for you.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you've found some tips and some tools on when things don't go your way or when life throws you a curveball. You can sit there and you can put on some tools that we've given you from this episode to say, how can I handle this better? How can I show it better as well? And just accept yourself for feeling like that as well.
For sure.
Yeah. Wow. What a lovely conversation.
I know.
16th episode.
I know.
4 months.
I know, it's crazy.
Wow.
And that has boosted my mood for sure.
That has boosted my mood.
Always does.
Boosted my mood.
Boosted my mood.
Boosted my mood. Do you have any weekly...
I do.
What's your weekly mood boost?
My weekly mood boost is Elle. She listens to this episode, this podcast.
Hi, Elle.
Hi, Elle. But she also comes to the Run Club in London. She moved house this week and was happy and excited about it, and it was just nice seeing her being happy and excited to move house and have a new base and a new location.
Base.
Yeah.
Congratulations
on the new
headquarters.
The new pad, Elle.
Well done, Elle. Congratulations. Well done. My mood boost of the week, over the weekend, of course, went to Sol's. His sister, Sasha, got a first in her degree.
From one academic to another. Well done, Sasha.
Incredibly smart girl. That's fantastic. A first. Did you get a...
No, but I don't talk about it. My dad died, all right?
Whoa, what? You can't use that in that case.
I flipping well can.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
My second year was a complete write-off, and they gave me no.
So was mine. I had COVID. Okay.
I'll let you rethink that one.
I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. Sasha, well done. Massive. That genuinely boosted my mood. It was fantastic to hear that you did well.
Congratulations.
All the best. She's now working for McLaren, the F1 team.
Oh, that's great.
Unreal. Yeah.
Well done.
Well done, Soul Sister Sasha.
Soul Sister. Hey, Soul Sister.
Soul. Hey, Soul Sister.
Mister on the radio. Stereo. The way you move and stay. You know the lyrics.
I know the lyrics. I did know the lyrics. I was singing there.
We were singing a different chorus then.
No, I was singing it. It's in back
to the
playlist.
Singing it.
Right. Well, thank you very much for a lovely episode.
Thank you.
Hopefully you loved the episode as well and took away some good pointers.
Indeed. Let us know if you implement any of them. We would love to know.
Let us know.
Whether in the comments or in the DMs or wherever. We would love to hear how you're implementing these suggestions and this advice. You can hear very much we're learning on the go as part of what we're doing here. Part of our mission. And I implemented literally last night something that we were talking about. So let's keep it moving.
Keep moving. Well, yeah, I'm gonna turn off the audio if you want to do a bit of ASMR to our listeners.
Hey, Soul Sister.